This is an On the Ice and Behind the Benches podcast on the Sports for Beginners podcast feed.
Cincinnati Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down, nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on Cincinnati Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on Cincinnati Radio.
Blue Jays, Reds of Cincinnati. It is Blue Jays game recap, 6-game road trip edition as the football season nears the opening, and of course, the baseball season, regular season, nears postseason time. Lights up, let's go. Welcome to Sports for Beginners. This is the show where I cover the Pittsburgh Penguins, Toronto Blue Jays, and take you on a journey through the world of sports. From the fans' perspective, here is your host, Scott McGregor. Let's have some fun. Well, Blue Jays fans. We were probably hoping for a Blue Jays win over the Cincinnati Reds. Welcome into Blue Jays game recap. I am, of course, Thomas McGregor, the host of Blue Jays game recap for the Road Series. It is the Cincinnati Reds and the Toronto Blue Jays, our topic of conversation throughout this 3-game series, which continues into Wednesday, when they'll wrap up their season series of 3 games. And then, of course, it's the Bronx Bombers in the New York Yankees at Yankee Stadium for the one last time in this 162-game season. More on that road series. 4-5 losers to the Cincinnati Reds, who send out Yosfer Zuleta, who will get the first win of the season for himself. And in Little, he now is 4-2 on the season with the loss. And the Blue Jays go from 79-58 to 79-59 with the loss to the Cincinnati Reds. The Cincinnati Reds with the victory go from a 69-68 to a 7 after they walk off the Blue Jays with Hunter Green, who got the start for this series at a record of 5-4. He will stay at 5-4 until his next start. If he gets a win, that record I'm sure will move up to 6-4. If he gets a loss, it'll be 5-5. But we'll see where that start goes his next time around. Meanwhile, Chris Bassett's case, his record is 11-7. Would have been 12-7 had he picked up a victory against the Cincinnati Reds with the Blue Jays in Game 1 of this series. However, due to the bullpen taking effect for both the Blue Jays and the Cincinnati Reds, his record remains at 11-7, which, had he got the loss, would also be 11-8. And if he got the win, like I said, 12-7, the record. Sends out Alejandro Kirk in the catching mitt for our Toronto Blue Jays. As we look at our lineup defensively for the game, Ernie Clement at third base, Nathan Lukes in left field, Dalton Varsho, he's back in center field after a little bit of a injury that was sustained during the homestand. We'll talk about the homestand a little later before our first break of the program. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is at first base. George Springer is your designated hitter out in right field with Nathan Lukes in left and Varsho in center field. We have Addison Barger in right field, leaving us with our second baseman in Andres Jimenez, alongside Ernie Clement, Bo Bichette, and of course, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. At first base, second base, third base, and shortstop, Alejandro Kirk catching for your Blue Jays. The manager of the Cincinnati Reds is Terry F, or in actual pronunciation, it is Terry Francona, if I'm saying that right. He is the manager of the Cincinnati Reds, and he lines up against John Schneider's Blue Jays like this for game one. Your right field, center field, and left fielders are none other than Jose Trevino catching. We have in left field Gavin Lux, I should say. At first base, we have Sal Stewart. Third base, we have Brian Hayes. We have Matt McLean at second base, batting in the ninth spot. Our center fielder is TJF. Our right fielder is N. Marte. Ilya De La Cruz is our shortstop. Austin Hayes is our designated hitter. So I had that right. Gavin Lux is in left field with N. Marte and TJF, who is getting the start in center field. At first base, it is Sal Stewart. Third base, we have Brian Hayes. Your catcher is Jose Trevino, catching Cincinnati Reds pitcher Hunter Green, as well as Alejandro Kirk is catching pitcher Chris Bassett. And then, of course, it's Matt McLean at second base, leading the second base charge for the Cincinnati Reds. All right, so the catching, the outfield, the infield, and the pitchers have been announced with Terry Francona and John Schneider. We're going to dive into the game next, but let's talk our first time out on Blue Jays game recap on the ice and behind the benches and sports for beginners. And when we come back, not only will we dive into this crazy game, one of the 3-game series, but we'll dive into, to start the show, a little bit of a backdrop to the 6-game homestand for the Blue Jays, featuring the Minnesota Twins and the hot Milwaukee Brewers. We'll dive into those series, take a little bit of the few games we can talk about with the Cincinnati Reds and the few games we can talk about from the Blue Jays. We'll break down Cincinnati's first game and remind you just before the next break when the second game of the series is to begin, and of course, keep you posted on the standings before the show is up. So up next, a brief look at the 6-game homestand, and that, of course, is the Blue Jays and the Cincinnati Reds previous series. We'll look at those games when we continue on Blue Jays game recap, plus the game 1 breakdown coming up when we return. Stay with us.
Looking for conversations on the world of broadcasting, sports media, and from time to time, my favorite sports teams? Listen to Broadcast Map with me, Ali Musa. To learn more about the show and to view the upcoming schedule, like the Broadcast Map Facebook page. Search Broadcast Map.
Cincinnati Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down, nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on Cincinnati Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on Cincinnati Radio.
Well, everybody, that is how we get things started with Blue Jays game recap. Of course, I am your host, Thomas McGregor of the program. The Blue Jays lose the opener of this series between the Cincinnati Reds. But lo and behold, before we get back into the Cincinnati Reds series, which continues, of course, tomorrow and then wraps up on Wednesday, we have some thoughts to get to and some storylines that have been coming out as of the 3-4 homestand, that the Blue Jays ended up taking 3 victories in a 6-game homestand 1 against Milwaukee, 2 against the Twins. Milwaukee took 2 out of the Blue Jays series, proving that they're just that good of a baseball team in some pretty good games that the Blue Jays had to win. And granted, they did win a series against the Minnesota Twins 2 out of 3, but they also lost a 2 out of 3 series to the Milwaukee Brewers, the best team in baseball. Now, no matter how you look at it, that was still a pretty good homestand, Blue Jay fans. I get it. It wasn't what we expected against Milwaukee, but hey, you had 2 pitching duels. Shane Bieber was absolutely lights out for Milwaukee to play against. Then, of course, you've got Kevin Gausman, who was on the hill for this game. Another one of those lights out starts, I believe. Well, sorry, no, this was Chris Bassett's day, but you got him in there, lights out, as he should be, and making sure that Milwaukee doesn't get the wrong idea. Bieber was faced with Freddie Peralta in his Major League Blue Jay debut at Rogers Center, in which both team pitchers went an equal amount of innings, 5 1/3 for Bieber, giving up 5 hits, 2 runs, striking out 6, giving up just 1 of those 5 hits as a home run. And then, of course, if you look at Peralta, the one he was facing, 6 innings complete, 8 strikeouts, 1 walk, 1 hit allowed. Pretty good game by them. Blue Jays do lose that game. Milwaukee takes it 7-2 Friday night in the opener. And then, of course, if you look at it from the second pitching duel that the Blue Jays had in the Milwaukee series, it was a bullpen game in which the starters, the Blue Jays and Milwaukee had. Kevin Gausman, 7 complete innings, 8 strikeouts, 4 hits allowed, 1 run earned, and 1 run allowed, but they would fight tooth and nail, only to lose 4-1 on Saturday's contest against the Milwaukee Brewers. And Quinn Priester, who went 6 innings complete as well, 5 hits allowed, 1 run, 3 strikeouts. And once again, Kevin Gausman was 7 complete innings, 8 strikeouts, 4 hits, 1 run. Then you go to a game that the Blue Jays had with the Brewers, the last game of the series, and it's the Blue Jays coming out on top despite making 2 errors in the series in that one game, with 8-4 victory on a 13-hit tie with the Milwaukee Brewers to pick up the win, with Tommy Nance going 2-0 and Brendan Woodruff going 5-2 with the loss. So 2-0 for Tommy Nance, and the Blue Jays send Brendan Woodruff to 5-2. That's a pretty good game by the Blue Jays against the Milwaukee Brewers. And then, of course, you come into Cincinnati after taking victories 9-8 on Wednesday afternoon and 10-4 on Monday night. And then, of course, the 5-7 loss over the Twins Tuesday night, in which the Blue Jays set a Looney Dog record and broke a Looney Dog record. If there's time, I'll bring that up. But that's our brief homestand update for you. The next homestand, of course, features Houston and Baltimore. Sure to be a fun series. A quick reminder as we get into Game 1's breakdown of this 3-game series, which continues until Thursday, when they're having off day and they're on the way to the Bronx to face the Yankees one last time for a weekend series, that I'd like you to keep it in tune, Blue Jay fans and baseball fans in general, for Sports for Beginners Facebook page to see if we are covering on Sports for Beginners, not on the ice and behind the benches, but on Sports for Beginners, the last road trip, which includes 4 games with Tampa Bay and 3 games with Kansas City in Tampa Bay's field of choice, of which they are playing all their regular season games this season, and in Kauffman Stadium for Kansas City Royals. So Sports for Beginners, once the host, that's me, notifies him if we're doing that final road trip, he will notify you of what's to come on that series, and we will have updates for you, whether that does become available, as the Blue Jays right now are in line for a good postseason run. But we will talk about that postseason run if there is a chance we put shows out for you during the postseason. So stay tuned for that. We have a game to break down. We've already broken down the pitching the managers, who's catching who, and of course the infield and the outfield to follow the catcher and the designated hitter for the game. So let's dive in to the game itself with our game 1 breakdown. And here we go, ladies and gentlemen. For the Blue Jays, 4 runs, 8 hits, 1 error committed in this series against the Cincinnati Reds. For the Cincinnati Reds, no errors committed on 11 hits, 5 runs, and they would come out victorious with IZ, his record 1-0 for the Cincinnati Red victory. Brendan Little, his record coming into this series was 4-1. His record now is 4-2 with an ERA finish of 3.22. 3.22, 4.50 is the ERA for YZ for short. And I'm going to stick with the short form, YZ for now. Let's dive into this game. How did it go? How did it get to where it was? Well, let's take you to the second inning of this one, folks, where Brian Hayes opens up a 2-run lead for the Cincinnati Reds. Just his 16th double of the season on a fly ball into left field. Nathan Lukes to make the play. Gavin Lux scores. So does Sal Stewart. And with Brian Hayes moving to third base on the double, the double turns into a triple, but the play is known as just a double because there seemed to be an error on the play. Anywho, it's 2-0 Cincinnati over Toronto. Top of the 7th inning, Blue Jays at bat, Alejandro Kirk at the dish. Single on a line drive into left field, Will Benson to make the play. Bo Bichette will score, and Dalton Varsho will go to second base. A 1-run lead for Cincinnati is the cause of this. As the Blue Jays get on the board, it's now 2-1 Cincinnati. Cincinnati holding on to a 1-run lead. 9th inning action. And after back-to-back homers, put the Blue Jays out in front, not only ending a 2-run deficit for the Cincinnati Reds, thanks to a 2-run shot from Bo Bichette, his 17th home run of the season. Miles Straw will score. It's 3-2 Blue Jays lead over the Cincinnati Reds. Dalton Varsho makes it a pair of runs for the Blue Jays with his 16th home run of the season on a right field deep ball, and now it's 4-2 Blue Jays over Cincinnati. Bottom 9. Blue Jays challenge for a boundary call, a stadium boundary call. After review, the call is overturned. The Blue Jays would get 1 run back and be down to just a 1-run lead, as the Cincinnati Reds would be given a 4-3 1-run lead deficit to follow, with the Blue Jays now leading 4 later in the inning after the double, which is his 9th double of the season for TJF, the short form for him. It is N. Marte singling on a ground ball into left field. Matt McLean scores. So does TJF. But you only need 1 run to say the ball game is tied. The next run calls the game. So TGF called game. TJF called game. And the Blue Jays fall in the opener 5-4. On N. Marte's single on a ground ball to Miles Straw, who came into the game to play left field, while Ty France took over in first base for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. after pinch hitting for the right fielder Addison Barger. But Thomas, what does that mean Nathan Lukes did? Well, Dalton Varsho remained in the game to play center field, and with Straw going to left, Nathan Lukes took over in Addison Barger's spot as the right fielder. Will Benson took Gavin Lux's spot in the order to play left field, so his day was done. And then after Jose Trevino was the catcher for the Cincinnati Reds, it's Miguel A, coming in to finish things off. He pinched hit for the catcher Jose Trevino, had 1 at bat, nothing to see there. It's unclear if he came in to play defense, but he did come in to pinch hit. But regardless, a 3-run ninth inning for the Blue Jays and a 3-run inning comeback from the Cincinnati Reds seals the deal as the Blue Jays take it 4-5 losers over the Cincinnati Reds. But that was just game one. Game two is tomorrow night, 6:40 p.m. Eastern Time, 5:40 p.m. Central Time, 4:40 p.m. Mountain Time, and that, of course, will be a 3:40 p.m. Pacific Time start. We'll get to the pitching matchups of that game momentarily before we wrap up this action. There is some Toronto sports action going on right now. I'll get to that if I have some time. There is some notes that came out as of the game before the Cincinnati Reds and Blue Jays went to play. IKF is back with the Blue Jays in Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. We'll talk about him if there is indeed time. But there is news that was brewing as this series began and as the series against Milwaukee wrapped up. Let's take a look, though, before we get into our team comparisons, which is up next. Let's take a look at the scoreboard to see what games are on and what games have gone final on this Monday, September 1st, 5. And happy September to all of those who love getting their money's worth with their jobs and, of course, finding ways to get to events, especially postseason baseball, which is always a great time, especially if your team is going all the way to the World Series. And, of course, the American League and National League Championship Series, also known as the ALDS or the NLDS. Just a couple of games left to go on the slate. The Boston Red Sox win out the Guardians 6-4 with Brian Bello getting the win for the Red Sox. His record now 11, and the loss goes to I can't say the guy's name, so I'm not going to bother trying to say it. His record is 0-1. That's his first loss of the season. Aroldis Chapman with the save, his 28th of the season. The Tigers fight hard against the Mets, but it's the Mets who come out on top 10-8 with a win from Staniak or R. Staniak, his 3-6. The loss goes to, of course, Drew Somers or Drew S. His record 0-1. And Edwin Diaz picks up his 20th save of the season. Speaking of saves, Andrew Alvarez picks up his first win of the season. His record 1-0. The loss goes to Lake Bachar, his record 5-2. And the save is on Jose F., his 5th save of the season. Still to come today, we have the Texas Rangers and the D-Bags, who are at 68 and 70. They'll get going at 8:10 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. It's the 71-67 Texas Rangers who will send to the mound Patrick Corbin, 7-9, versus R. Nelson, who's 7-3 for Arizona. And it looks like the Twins game just wrapped up. And indeed they did lose to the White Sox. Their record now 62-75 with a 50-88 White Sox winning 6-5 on 12 hits to 8, committing 2 errors to just the 1 error committed by the Minnesota Twins. Tyler Alexander is the winner, his record 5-13. Justin Topa, his record 1-4 with the loss. And the save goes to Jordan Leisure, his 5th save of the so that is his 5th save of the season. Good for him. Tampa Bay is the other AL East game on the slate for those Blue Jay fans interested in what that will have. It'll be Shane Baz, 8-11, taking on Luis Castillo, 8-7. Game scheduled to go at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. 6:35 p.m. Central Time, and of course, 5:35 p.m. Mountain Time, 4:35 p.m., of course, Pacific. That's going to be a fun one to watch. And so is going to be the Orioles and Padres series, where it'll be Kyle Bradish, 0-1, hoping to get his first hoping to get his first win of the season. He'll go up against the 6-11 Dylan Cease. That's going to be fun. And ongoing matchups as of right now, we got the Rockies trailing the Giants 3-0 with 2 outs and runners on first and second base. The Philadelphia Phillies currently down 4 runs to the Milwaukee Brewers, top of the 3rd inning. It's 4-0 there in Milwaukee. In the top of the 9th, we have the 8-3 victors of the Houston Astros right now, hoping to close out a victory on just 12 hits to 7 for the Angels. But the Angels have 1 out and 2 on. After 3 innings of play, it remains 3-0. Cubs down by 3 over the Atlanta Braves. The LA Angels, as I said, in the top of the 9th. Brewers just made it out of the top of the 3rd inning. They're headed to the bottom half. And it looks like we got another final. That is the A's and the Cardinals on the slate as they win out the Cardinals 11-3, with the Cardinals making 3 errors, taking 8 hits, and taking 3 runs, despite being out-hit 15-8 and outscored 11-3. Though if errors was the name of the win column and lose column, they beat the Athletics 3 errors to 0. Too bad errors don't count as wins. But hey, so still plenty of action left to go, but not a lot of games will be left to see when we get to our standings update, if we have a chance to get to our standings update. Time now for our team comparisons for this series, and of course, we'll be getting ready to set up Game 2 of this 3-game series between the Cincinnati Reds and the Toronto Blue Jays. Let's get in to our team comparisons before we take our next time out of Blue Jays game recap. So let's dive in. Let's see how the Cincinnati Reds and Blue Jays created a potential wild finish. We know that the Blue Jays and the Reds each scored 4 runs, and we know that they scored 11 hits to 8. We know that the Blue Jays had 2 homers. We talked about them. Both teams touched base 16 times, and while Cincinnati left just 8 men on base, the Blue Jays only left and stole 1 base, but they left 4 men on base, committed 1 error in this series. Will they commit another error? Remains to be seen in this series, but the Cincinnati Reds come out unscathed against the Blue Jays, with Hunter Green going 6 1/3 innings, allowing 5 hits, 1 run, 7 strikeouts. Chris Bassett, 6 strikeouts, 5 hits, 2 runs, 6 complete innings. And Bo Bichette, he had a day. 4 for 4, a homer, 2 RBIs, 2 doubles, I believe he had as well, and 2 runs driven in. No matter how you look at it, it was a pretty good game. Those were your top performers of the game. We'll get to our player of the game for both the Blue Jays and, of course, the Cincinnati Reds on the other side of this next break. But coming up when we return to Blue Jays game recap, we'll keep an eye on the action going on in the MLB. I'll get you ready for some packed sports for beginners news before we get ready for On the Ice, and Behind the Benches, and Sports for Beginners to sign off of Blue Jays baseball for this one, because we got some pretty big announcements coming your way throughout this show. Our standings update, like I said, if there is indeed time, is of course 5:02 p.m. and we're taking it up to the top of the 5:30 hour. So we'll see if we can get to 5:30. Maybe we'll go a little bit longer than that. But once we're through with the standings update, we'll set up the attendance record, get to the finish line of this show, and prepare you for the next time we talk Blue Jays game recap. Will be the second game of this 3-game series. Perhaps if we're getting you ready for that game, by the time you're listening to this, the game will be closer than you think, but we will take a break and bring out the players of the games get a look at the MLB scoring, and the standing update is still to come. Stay with us.
Looking for a sports podcast that covers sports weekly as well as gets you set up for the day? Check out Weekly in Sports with me, Scott McGregor. We give some shout outs of the week to podcasts like this one and those who do them. Discuss the Blue Jays, Bills, Raptors, and more. To learn more, check out the Sports for Beginners Facebook page. Search Sports for Beginners. Looking for a good hockey podcast that covers your favorite hockey teams and mine? Check out On the Ice and Behind the Benches, where we chat about our favorite hockey teams from puck drop to the last play of the action. To learn more, follow the On the Ice and Behind the Benches Facebook page. Search On the Ice and Behind the Benches.
It is Blue Jays game recap, and before we get back into it here on the Ice and Behind the Benches and Sports for Beginners, it's the Blue Jays, it's the Cincinnati Reds. Before we get into it, guys and girls listening into the program, as we're here with you for just a couple of more minutes, inherent that we talk about some of the news that has come out since the series began with the Cincinnati Reds and the Toronto Blue Jays. But of course, I also have some news to bring up to you over the course of this show, and I'll get just some of the news out right now. With football season nearing kickoff this Thursday, Dolphins fans, I may not be a fan of the team right now, but that's not to be concerned. That's something to discuss off air. So off of our recording sessions here, I will be doing Dolphins post game. Win or lose, we'll have it for you on Sports for Beginners and On the Ice and Behind the Benches. And we've even got a special before they kick off, Keys to Victory, finishing off every Dolphin post-game show that leads into a Sunday night football kickoff. And speaking of before they kick off, football action continues into Monday with the return of before they kick off during every primetime game that the Buffalo Bills host Scott McGregor for Sports for Beginners right at the crack of the Sunday night football finish. It's the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens. But I guess in baseball terms, you could classify Sunday night football as the Blue Jays as Buffalo versus the Orioles as the Ravens for Baltimore. So it's a little bit of a battle of the birds. Sunday night football for SNF to kick off another NFL season. Join Scott Monday or probably on Tuesday when it comes out for the post-game show as the Bills take on the Ravens at 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time, 12:20 a.m. London Time, 20 p.m. Paris Time in Sunday, which will be, of course, Monday by the time you guys in Paris and London have approached the, of course, end of Sunday. So make sure you tune into that. It's Blue Jays at Cincinnati. We get back in the Blue Jays game recaps, topic of conversation. Here comes the player of the game for the Cincinnati Reds and the Toronto Blue Jays. Ke'Bryan Hayes enters our player of the game conversation with a 3-for-4 day, double, 2 RBIs, and a run scored. Seems like a pretty good day for Ke'Bryan Hayes. Looks like a great day for YZ, the winner pitcher of this game. And a reminder that in the standings, Cincinnati may be third in the National League Central, but that it can't be changed. But there is a way that Cincinnati can probably crawl themselves in to the postseason. You just never know. Well, the Blue Jays, they're at the top of the mountain right now. But, and you're going to hate me for this, Blue Jay fans, if we start a losing streak against Milwaukee, the Astros, and Baltimore, the schedule doesn't get any tougher than that, Blue Jay fans. And remember, you've got the Yankees to worry about. As far as leaders are concerned, you've got the Astros. And yes, you've also got the Tigers to worry about in terms of wild card hopes. So anything can happen, and we all know it. It may be late in the season right now since we're in September, but anything can happen. And speaking of Houston, they were the game that had just gone final, minus the other finals that we had just talked about with the 2-0 shutout win Nationals over the Miami Marlins. And of course, the Guardians 6-4 losers to the Red Sox. The Tigers lose to the New York Mets 10-8. The Astros hold off the Angels 8-3. They were the recent final. Winning pitcher is Garcia, Luis Garcia. His record 1-0. Yusei Kikuchi has had a bit of it's a bit of a up and down turn for him this season. Just 6 wins, 10 losses. He now has a record of 6-10, which means had he picked up the victory for the Angels, it would have been a 7-10 record, maybe a 7-9 record, but Garcia would have been on the losing train. That would have been his first loss of the season. Still ongoing right now. We have matchups to get to, including a top of the 5, 3-0 lead over the Rockies. It's the Giants, 68-69, over a 39-98 Rockies team. In the bottom of the 4th, we have the Phillies on the board, but trailing 4-1. It's a 3-run lead for the Milwaukee Brewers, 4-1, with the Milwaukee Brewers threatening to increase that lead. Runners at the corners on third and first base with 1 out. In the Cubs game, they've approached the top of the 5th with a 3-run game as the Cubs have cut it to a pair. It's now 3-1. Rogers is into the ball game. Taylor Rogers is into the ball game for the pitch. And of course, Matt Olson. He's 1 for 1 right now. He's at the plate. Now it's Ronald Acuna Jr. And still to come today, it's at 6:40. We got the Baltimore Orioles taking on the Padres. The Rays are taking on the Mariners just 35 minutes after 7 o'clock p.m. And we got the Texas Rangers taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks later at 8:10. So already a day's worth of baseball on Monday has been completed. And we'll get to what's happening for the other teams, I'm sure, momentarily. For the Blue Jays, they'll send Jose Barrios on the mound against our pitcher of choice against the Cincinnati Reds. It'll be the 8-7 Nick Lodulu, or Nick L. Nick L. He's the left-handed pitcher. He's 8-7 on the season. He'll verse a 9-5 Jose Barrios, who currently has an ERA of 3.95, compared to him, who has an ERA of 3.22. Both pitchers looking for a win, but only one team can win and one team can lose. Who will it be? Find out at 6:40 Eastern Time tomorrow when the Blue Jays and the Reds continue their series. All right, still plenty of baseball to be played here on Monday and plenty of action to be talked about. I'm talking about Bo Bichette's 4-for-4 day. He's the player of the game for the Blue Jays in my book. 4-for-4 hits. He got 4 hits. Never struck out in this entire at bat. He drove in 2 runs, 2 RBIs, and he increased his on-base percentage to .832 in OPS. Now, of course, there was an error in this ball game, and that, of course, goes to Bo Bichette. That's his 12th fielding error as well. So he does have a little bit of an error in the ball game defensively. But hey, great news base running. George Springer steals his 16th second base off of Green, and the catcher, Jose Trevino, his 16th career second base stole. Maybe that's his 16th stolen base of the season. Assists from double plays, Nathan Lukes and Alondro Kirk. Compare for double play, you had Lukes and Hayes at home for the outfield assists. Ellie De La Cruz, Hayes, and De La Cruz, along with Steele. I don't know how to say this guy's first name, so I'm just going to go with Steer, I should say. They commit for a double play fielding on the Cincinnati side. The pop out for Trevino in the 9th, and of course, 1 run for Guerrero in the 9th as well. Guerrero Jr. All right, we're approaching that time. We've got our players of the game out of the way, but let's dive into some news that's been breaking for the Blue Jays, and I'm sure there's news breaking out in Cincinnati as well. One of the news is that is breaking out as we look at it is IKF. He is thrilled to be back with the Toronto Blue Jays, saying there's a high level of loyalty to look at. Keegan Matheson from Cincinnati, I believe, is on the report of this news, saying that it was a quick turnaround for Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, who was more than happy to make a 5-hour drive Sunday night and make his way to Cincinnati to rejoin the Blue Jay teammates for Monday's matinee game against the Cincinnati Reds. After flying back to Pittsburgh from Boston, where his Pittsburgh Pirates, the former team now for him, was playing the Red Sox over the weekend, Kiner-Falefa, or IKF, made it back to the Steel City to pack his personal belongings, hop in a car, make the journey so he could be available for a 1 Eastern PM start at Great American Ballpark, saying, I packed up for about an hour left at 9:30 p.m. and then got in at 2:30 a.m. at the hotel, Kiner-Falefa said. IKF, who was claimed off of waivers by Blue Jays on Sunday, was only too happy to make the trip to join the team that traded him in 2024 and be reunited with a lot of familiar faces. He also goes on to say, as in quote from Kiner-Falefa, I'm really excited coming here. He signed with Toronto as a free agent before the 2024 season, just jumping in the race. It's a good time to be here. He wanted to play last year to get the opportunity to come back is great, he says. And I think it's great as well. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, welcome back. I'm going to go with IKF as our short form, but it is great to see you back. What will this do for the Blue Jays postseason-wise? What will this do for them the rest of the season? Remains to be seen, fans of the Blue Jays. But it looks like Isaiah Falefa, or Isaiah, I'm going to go with IKF, will be a valuable piece off the bench to the Blue Jays and John Schneider in general. And this 30-year-old utility brings. He is 30 years old. And the Blue Jays even posted at 12:08 today. We heard this. Is he what you want to see? IKF is back. Now, I don't know why we call him Izzy, but I have a feeling it has something to do with nicknames Blue Jays fans have called Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. But I'm going to go with IKF. That was one of our nicknames we gave him. And that's the easiest thing to go. What can you expect from IKF? Well, what can you expect from him if he was with the Pirates? Pretty much probably the same that he got with Pirates, but this time in a postseason run with the Blue Jays. And if you recall, one of the Blue Jay postgame recaps I did with you the last couple of times. If you guys recall, I had the postseason schedule that was coming out. So yeah, there's a lot to be excited about, Isaiah. There's a lot to be excited about. And there's a lot to be excited about for all you IKF fans out there who were hoping the Blue Jays would make this deal to claim him off waivers and send him back to Toronto. So let's see what 2025 Toronto IKF looks like. Speaking of that news, we are just about a little over the 5:30 p.m. hour. It is now 5:31 in the East Coast here. We have pretty much set up game 2 of this 3-game series. That is, of course, Jose Barrios on the hill against his pitcher of choice that he is facing. Interesting. It was 40 for Chris Bassett versus, who was our starter that they sent out? It was 40 for us, Chris Bassett for the Blue Jays. And the starter for the Cincinnati Reds were, what number was it? Hunter Green. It was 21. So 21 versus 40, 17 versus 40 tomorrow. Interesting. Talk about a little switcheroo there. We'll see what happens at 6:40 Eastern tomorrow in Cincinnati. Thanks to our timeout that we had taken before we came in to finish off the show, that means we have approached our standings update, which we aren't going to talk about the standings for the division, but we are going to talk about the wild card race for both the National League and the American League East. And then we'll get to our attendance record to finish off the show. So, as it stands right now, the Blue Jays are now second in the AL East leaders. I mean the American League leaders. They are the AL East #1 team. The Tigers are #1 American League Central team in the AL. In the AL West, we have the Houston Astros, who are about just 2 games behind the Blue Jays in terms of wins. 76-62, the record for them. And then, of course, the Blue Jays 79-59, who are just 1 game back of the Detroit Tigers, 80-59 for them. The Yankees and Boston are both 3 games up on each other in the wild card, trying to get the second and first wild card spots finished. Seattle, 73-64 right now for them. They are trying to get their wild card hopes up on the first and maybe second wild card race spot, but they currently hold the third wild card spot, which is up for grabs with the Texas Rangers just 2.5 out of the wild card race, 2.5 to be exact. Meanwhile, 3 out of the wild card race, but still very much likely in it, is the Kansas City Royals at 70-67. The Tampa Bay Rays are just 5.5 out of the wild card race, but the Cleveland Guardians are only 4.5 out of the wild card race. They are 4.5 games out of the wild card race. The Angels are moving up, just 9 games out of the wild card race. And looky here come the Athletics at 10 games out of the wild card race. If they go on a run, they could be a wild card team. They could be a team in it for the wild card race. And the Minnesota Twins are also wild card bound with just 11 games out of the wild card race. Now, will this change as we are in the final month of the season? You never know. Baltimore and the White Sox are pretty much sitting in elimination territory at 50-88 for the White Sox, 61-76 for the Baltimore Orioles, but things can change. You never really do know. 23.5 games out of the wild card race for the White Sox and 12 games out of the wild card race for the Baltimore Orioles. It's pretty set in stone here in the National League, but the National League West opponents, the LA Dodgers, sit just a game back of the Philadelphia Phillies with a chance to take the second place spot in the National League. And the Milwaukee Brewers are a couple of games up on the Dodgers and just a few games up on the Philadelphia Phillies at 85-53 with 79-58 on to take their spots if they are close. And in the wild card race, we have the Chicago Cubs at 78-59. We have the Padres at 76-61, just 2.5 games in on the wild card, 4.5 games in on the wild card is the Chicago Cubs. Cincinnati Reds just 4 games out of the wild card race with a 70-68 record. You have a 68-69 San Francisco Giants team against the eliminated 39-98 Colorado Rockies, with them just 34.5 games out of the wild card race. 19.5 out of the wild card race is the Washington Nationals, and the Pirates are only 13 games out of the wild card race. 11.5 is the Atlanta Braves. 9 games out of the wild card race, but still pretty much in that conversation, is the Miami Marlins. And you've got a 6.5 St. Louis Cardinals team at 68-71, hoping to dwindled their games to possibly 5.5 games out of the wild card race, maybe even smaller. The Diamondbacks just 6 games back of that wild card race, and of course the Giants 5.5 out of this wild card chase. Well, that is it, Blue Jays fans, Cincinnati Reds fans, for now. That is your standings update for the National League and the American League. The race is still pretty tight, but you never know. The night is still young. Anything can happen. Once again, the action, we're not going to share the screen, but we are going to give you a look at what the action is on right now. We got the Baltimore Orioles, Padres coming up. The Rays and the Mariners are coming up. And then at 8:10 p.m. Eastern Time, it's the Rangers, it's the D-backs. The Brewers are currently 5-3 winners over the Philadelphia Phillies, but that game is only in the 5th inning and approaching the bottom half of that 5th inning. The Braves have taken 6-2 lead on the Cubs, and they're in the bottom of the 5th. In the top of the 6th right now, it's 6-0 Giants over the Rockies. And our finals, 8-3 Astros over Angels. Twins beat themselves over the White Sox, 6-5 losers. White Sox win. The Athletics win 11-3 over the Cardinals. Our game, of course, 5-4 Cincinnati Reds over the Blue Jays. The Red Sox beat the Guardians 6-4. And the Nationals shut out the Marlins 2-0. 10-8 your final score in Comerica Park, with the Mets taking the victory. And those are the final scores of all the games so far that have gone final. The remaining games: Padres, Orioles, Rays, Mariners, and of course, Rangers, D-backs still to come on the MLB schedule. But if you're interested in Brewers, Phillies, or perhaps Braves, Cubs, Rockies, or Giants, I'd get to the right broadcast for those games, because once they have approached the 9th inning, unless there's extras, those games are running out quick. So enjoy the baseball, everybody. We're back with you for another Blue Jays game recap edition featuring Jose Barrios on the hill against Nick L for the Cincinnati Reds. My name is Thomas McGregor. Thank you so much for joining us. Please call me Thomas, and I'll see you all after the Blue Jays and the Cincinnati Reds play Game 2 of this 3-game series. For now, let's eavesdrop on the Cincinnati Reds and the Blue Jays as the Reds beat the Blue Jays 5-4 in a walk-off edition that featured an attendance record of 21,773 fans in attendance at Great American Ballpark. That's 21,773 fans in attendance, and that seems like a lot of fans at Great American Ballpark in my book. Lights up, let's go. We'll see each other after Game 2 between Jose Barrios and the Blue Jays and Nick L and the Cincinnati Reds. 3-game series continues next time on Blue Jays Game Recap. Game 2 will be broken down next time. See you then.
Thank you so much for listening to Sports for Beginners. If you would like to learn more about the show, you can visit the podcast Facebook page or visit the official website. You can also send us an email at sportsforbeginnerspodcast8231@gmail.com. As we always remind you, it is not goodbye, it is until next time.
Thank you so much for listening to the On the Ice and Behind the Benches post-game show on the Sports for Beginners podcast feed. Remember, everybody on the Ice and Behind the Benches, to join Thomas every Tuesday for weekly episodes of your favorite ice content, from the drop of the puck to hitting the showers. We thank you for joining us.